Welcome back. Tensions between South Africa and the U.S. are rising after the U.S. House of Foreign Affairs Committee advanced a bill that could impose personal sanctions on senior ANC leaders, citing concerns over South Africa's foreign policy. This comes ahead of the new U.S. tariffs and the looming expiry of the AGOA trade agreement in September. Former Ambassador Ebrahim Rasool says the business sector must now take the lead in repairing relations. Business Unity South Africa CEO Khulekani Mathe will weigh in on this. He'll be joining us, and there is standing by to speak to us about how business can respond to this instability that has been taking place in the relationship between Washington as well as Pretoria. A very good morning to you, Khulekani, and thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Hi, good morning, Khulekani. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sure. Good morning, and thank you so much for making time for us. So we were speaking to Ambassador Ebrahim Rasool yesterday. I'm going to play the clip from that interview, and I'd love to hear your response to it and whether there's any credence to the suggestion that a business can really play a role in trying to stabilize the relationship between Washington as well as Pretoria.
And we can use anyone for this, particularly business who have interests in the USA, can go out and do the think tanks, do the business associations, do the various kind of things that lobbyists and advocacy groups do. That really is what is required, and it doesn't take a special designation. In fact, I would say that you've actually just got to get that kind of work done in the USA, not because I think South Africa is going there begging, but South Africa needs to know what are our leverages. We don't stand empty-handed. We don't stand as powerful, for example, as other countries like China, but we don't stand empty-handed given the fact that we have some critical minerals, that we have other products, that we have American companies that make a lot of money in South Africa, and we need to mobilize a whole of South Africa effort to stop this, and it can be stopped by September if we are able to do the right kind of work.
Sure. Khulekani, do you think that it is possible for business to play that particular role, also considering that on Friday you have the tariffs that will kick in? This is now on the 1st of August, and then you have that expiry of AGOA that is coming in September. Still not clear whether South Africa will be part of the renewal.
Good morning, Aldrin, and to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. What I understand Ambassador Rasool to be saying is really that we are in an environment where we need to essentially pull all stops, get everybody who can get involved to play a part in addressing the challenges that we face in the US. And indeed, business is playing its part here. We have obviously business counterparts in the US, in other words, business organizations like ours that we interact with regularly, and we also interact with officials of the US government in South Africa, the embassy, to exchange information about what's going on and so on. So we are playing our part. And what I understand, Ambassador Rasool, is that we shouldn't just be doing it here, but we should also be doing it in the US. In other words, make sure that the US, both the officials in the US, but also the general public, get to hear about South Africa, get a full picture about South Africa, and not only one-sided view of South Africa.
Yeah, what's the role that could be played now? And from the work that has happened over the past few years, including, for instance, if you look at that MOU that Business Unity South Africa had signed with is it the U.S. Chamber of Commerce as well?
Yes.
What is the hurdle? Why is it that we're struggling to get over these particular hurdles, even after that meeting that the president has had with Donald Trump?
Look, I don't want to pretend to know what goes on in the US and certainly in the White House. But I think what we should take from this is the fact that there was a period in which there was very little, if any, communication between Pretoria and Washington. And the meeting in the White House by the president opened those doors. We are aware that officials from South Africa are talking to officials in Washington. While we're not privy to the details of those conversations yet, but at least they're talking, and that's positive, as opposed to a situation where there was no communication whatsoever.
Yeah, but with that said as well, there was the appointment of the special envoy, which Kebisi Jonas, which Busa had welcomed at the time, but then it turns out that the US has actually rejected his credentials.
We don't know what the US has said and the basis of the rejection of the credentials, and so I cannot comment on that.
Yeah, but what does it say? What does this tell us? What are your concerns as business if this is happening?
Well, it clearly indicates that we are in a different environment to the one we've been in before. You will also just recall that in recent memory, we haven't had a situation like this play out. So clearly the environment has changed. But I think what we would continue to urge for is that it doesn't help to put the global economy on such levels of uncertainty. We need to return to a rules-based trading system so that we can allow the supply chains to flow, which is the lifeblood of the global economy.
What are your partners telling you currently about the impact of this tariffs that will be coming on the 1st of August, the impact that it has already had on their business?
Look, the impact is going to be huge for certain sectors that are exposed to the United States. In sectors like auto, sectors like agriculture, in particular citrus, the impact is going to be huge. But as you can imagine, these activities, these economic activities, i.e. auto production and agricultural activity, in particular citrus, does take place in certain regions. And so, yes, there will be an overall economic impact in South Africa, which will begin to become evident in our levels of economic growth. But more importantly, those sectors will be affected. There will be job losses. And unfortunately, this is also going to lead to a situation where South Africa finds itself having to find alternative ways of dealing with the situation. I mean, it's not easy to find alternative markets, but I think we've got to work hard to look at how we can avert the situation.
Yeah. Do you think that there was perhaps maybe a lackluster approach to finding those alternative markets? Because as you say, that there was a period as well where there wasn't communication between Washington and Pretoria. I remember even with the Lady R incident as well. And again, the bipartisan push for South Africa's membership of AGOA not to be renewed. Should South Africa had started back then already looking for those alternative markets?
Look, developing new markets takes a long time. In some instances, it could be years before you can start shipping your goods to those markets. And South African businesses, like any business, has always been looking for other markets where it can sell its products. So that's always been there, but it is just not as easy as it is often made out to be. But we continue to do that. We are in touch with our US counterparts also to look at ways in which this could still be averted. As you know, Aldrin, we still have the question hanging over our head as to whether AGOA will be renewed or reauthorized in September. And we are doing our part, engaging with our colleagues and counterparts in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Corporate Council for Africa, etc., to use their own influence in Washington to push for and make a case for why reauthorizing AGOA and really not imposing these kinds of tariffs on South Africa is not only punishing South Africa, but it is also has a negative impact on the USA, as we know that what we send to the USA or sell to the USA supports production in the USA. And so the impact is not one-sided. It will affect the USA as well. And this is why we're talking to our counterparts to really try and make the case that we should look for a solution to this challenge?